This is the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Niemann. If you're looking to generate wealth and passive income in the lucrative world of mobile home parks, you're in the right place. You'll discover solutions to the common legal and operational pitfalls and how to optimize parks to maximize income. Your host is in the trenches. He's a real estate attorney, financial analyst, and mobile home park investor and operator. Now, let's turn it over to Ferd Niemann.
Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd Niemann here again at another episode of the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast. I just got back from MHI Expo in Las Vegas. It was a good conference, about 1,600 people there, about 200 vendors, lots of bankers, brokers, service providers, community owners, and a whole bunch of other people. It's impossible to get around and say hi to everybody. Got to say hi to some clients and some friends, and that was nice. Also got to sit in on some sessions. I spoke in one session on a panel discussion on navigating the acquisition in today's environment. So that's something I'll cover probably at another time. But today I wanted to highlight some stuff that came up at a session called How Ancillary Services Provide Value and Resident Satisfaction. This became kind of almost like a town hall where people were given ideas and tips. In addition to the host on the panel, we had Mike Niebauer, our rent manager, was on the panel, and then Stephen Blank with Blank Family Communities and Sam Hales with Saratoga Group. So the three of those guys had a lot of good tips and tricks, if you will, but then also there were others in the crowd that contributed. So I'm going to highlight some of my notes. I added a couple things of my own on here as well, but it was really just interesting to see what people are doing in today's environment. Acquisitions are generally down because of the interest rate environment we're in. So I feel like most people are focusing more and more on operations. Here for us, we've been the last month or so spending a lot of time on putting together more processes and trainings, both written and recorded, either Zoom trainings, or we typically use Microsoft Teams for our training videos. And part of the reason for this is to kind of mitigate some of the pain of turnover. So that's something that, when you lose a person, and it's really hard in this environment, in my experience, I heard this at the conference from a lot of good operators, it's really hard to find good personnel right now. So what some people are doing is if they find a good manager, they'll try to give that manager 2 or 3 properties. Well, that obviously is an additional workload for the manager. So the way to, reduce that workload and make it reasonable is to providing more back office support. Some people are doing it even overseas, having accounting overseas or 24-hour call centers for, customer service requests, maintenance requests, things of that sort. Showings, another tip. And we've been doing this in a couple of my parks where we're down staff right now, is ghost showings or virtual showings. And there's software or tools you can get. I think Stephen mentioned Tenant Turner is a system that helps with remote showings. I mean, I used to sell single family houses and flip houses and stuff, and I was doing this back 15 years ago, even, where I would just put a lockbox. I had a regular day job. I couldn't do showings 24/7. So if somebody would respond, I just had a lockbox on the door, and I'd say, text me a photo of your driver's license. That way, if something bad happens, you're on the short list of people I'm going to hand over to the police. But then in return, I'll give you the code. And I'd say, and then, the key's in the box. And then after you leave, please confirm you put the key back in the box. And then I would try to do some sort of exit interview if they didn't want to buy the house. And that's what people are doing more and more today, is posting ads from a central location. This can be a challenge sometimes with Facebook, because Facebook knows if I'm sitting here in Kansas City, they can tell from my computer, my phone, or my GPS that I'm not showing houses 6-8 hours away. So they can kind of bury my listings, or you can get flagged pretty easily on how to, flagged as being a fake account. So if you're doing ghost showings, you want to make sure that you've got, organic content and photos. I've tried it before, and a team has tried it, where you just take a couple stock photos from a house we sold 2 years ago and post that one in 5 different cities. Because sometimes it's harder when you have limited staff in different locations to get good photos, because seemingly taking a photo shouldn't be that hard, but a lot of park greeters are part-time, some park managers and some, maintenance or rehab personnel seem to struggle with that. But that's a new thing that, not necessarily new, but something that you can do. So overall in this session, we covered some ancillary services, but then as a group just kind of shared some recent tactics in this environment. So one thing you can do is, if you have we use Rent Manager, but I'm sure all the other providers have similar services that you can set up standard reports. So you have to go pull the report. You can have it set up in your inbox that send me, every Monday, the delinquency report or move in, move outs or financial reports and just any sort of standard reporting, or you could even do some customized reports. Um, that's a kind of a new tactic, not necessarily new, but that's something you can do to shore up your operations. Other ancillary services people are providing, generally for additional fee, but perhaps just to make the community more desirable to live in is, provide internet or even high speed internet or better service internet. Maybe not for free, but make that available to people. One that I've never paid for in bulk, but it seems to be a new thing that a lot of people in the apartment business are doing. And generally, the apartment business is a little bit ahead of the MH business as far as sophistication or cutting edge. But they're doing bulk service for pest control services. Somebody mentioned Pest Share is a vendor, and you can just have a monthly fee, and they'll spray for bugs every house. We typically, if we're aware of bugs and if somebody moves out, well, then we'll take care of that particular house. Or if it's a big infestation, we may take care of the neighboring lots, generally at our cost, or out of someone's security deposit if they left the house with bugs. If you've never paid for bed bug removal, you don't want to. Termites are pretty inexpensive. General bugs pretty inexpensive. Cockroaches typically takes more than one treatment, but still pretty inexpensive, $100, $200 a whack. But if you have bed bugs, it's like $3,000 or more. So you really want to, prevent bed bugs. And a lot of that's up to the residents themselves. Other ancillary services, some people take care of lawn care for a fee. More common, people have, what they call force mow Monday. And you just basically put in the lease or in park rules that every Monday we're mowing the grass for anybody that didn't mow it over the weekend. And maybe give them a grace period of 2 or 3 days. Give them notices, say on Friday, hey, your grass is tall, because that time of year, it's spring. It's, that's the downside of spring and summer. You got to take care of the lawn, and you got to get your residents to take care of the lawn. Typically, the norm is that the residents take care of their own individual lot, and the manager or maintenance team takes care of the common areas. But I've got some residents that they just, they can't really take care of the lawn. They're elderly, and we'll do it for an extra fee. We typically tell them we don't want to be in the mowing business, so find a neighbor kid to do it for $10. We don't want to do it for $10. We want to do it for $50, and that's not even a reasonable price. So hire them. But if it's force mow, it's going to cost you $50. Other things people are putting in, better cable, and trying to bulk cable. I've not had a lot of success with bulk cable where it's, quote free, but it's included in the lot rent, because inevitably, you have some service issues, and or you have people that they want, the Big Ten network, and you don't have Big Ten. They want HBO, you don't have HBO. So then they're mad and they got to order it separate, but then they're still paying for, whatever your cable package is. Some people have 24-hour maintenance, or like an emergency maintenance team, or at least 24-hour call center. Other things, some people do like kind of an add-on amenities or almost like a concierge service of, we'll give you more text communication, get on our newsletter, give away Home Depot gift cards for yard of the month. Some people will pay to have their trash taken from their house or their porch to the receptacle. We typically use the individual toters or poly carts as opposed to the big dumpsters, because the big dumpsters get filled up with tons and tons of crap from people that don't live in the community. So and by the way, the truck that picks up the big dumpsters weighs, I don't know, 30,000 pounds and beats up your roads, versus the truck that picks up the poly carts weighs like 6,000 pounds and it doesn't beat up your roads as much. One thing we've learned is also is we generally control who the trash company is. There was only one company coming in. In my first community, there were like 3 different trash providers. So you got 3 guys with trucks coming in, beating up the roads on a daily basis. That's something to look at on DD as well. I have a small park in Des Moines, and we had trouble getting a trash provider because the nature of the road layout was, it was just a straight shot down and back. So there was nowhere to turn around. So the big companies didn't want to mess with it because they had to pull all the way in and then back all the way out onto a busy street. So I ended up having to get, more of a smaller local guy that has a regular truck and just makes several routes and several trips. But that is an add-on people can charge for is trash. Some people will have add-on for rights to use the playground or the dog park, generally a pet fee. If you've got dogs, you're the ones that are benefiting from the dog park. So there's an add-on fee. Some places do landscaping. Um, that's interesting. I don't think I want to get in the landscaping business, but other things that people have used, and you've probably seen these in neighborhoods before, the free library, like take a book, give a book, and then stock them with books. Generally people don't vandalize or steal those, so it seems to work okay. I don't know how much of a benefit it really is, but it certainly makes it feel like a welcoming, friendly community. Taking that a step further would be providing for a study hall or community center, for kids after school. I've heard of community owners. I've not done this, but communities who have got the local library or some other local charity to host an after school program. And the library in one instance gave a bunch of books and tables and even some computers. The catch there is who's going to manage it? What's the liability? What are the hours? So pros and cons with some of these things. Some people are adding a print shop. Some people, they don't have their own printer, but they can go into the community center and pay for printing. Other more aesthetic stuff would be like just adding more street signs. That's actually convenient for people, but it also looks better and it's not that expensive. You can also collaborate with a local charity or school for a free lunch program, or any sort of other government services. That's going to be very, hit or miss, jurisdiction specific. Other things that people are doing would be trying to reduce expenses by having consistent products and or purchasing locations that, one guy in the crowd's with purchasing platform, and what their company does is basically is you can buy everything through them, and you can even set it where your managers have to go and like say they're going to buy toilet paper or buy printer paper or buy trash bags. You have the system set up for that community that they can only select item number 995, and that is hefty 30-gallon trash bags instead of choosing from 80 different types of trash bag. And in theory, if you use the same products, it just becomes more cost effective and it takes the guesswork out, and then you don't have to worry about chasing your manager down as much for receipts. We use a system called ComData that we can make basically a corporate card and it tracks everything they buy and from where. We still want receipts for backup because sometimes it'll just say, Smith's hardware. Well, what do they buy at Smith's hardware? Stuff for their personal use, or they buy, what unit did it go for? Because you need to track that for your balance sheet or your P&L, is what unit that cost should be attributed to. Some other things that we've done a decent job with is buying in bulk. We've bought appliances in bulk. We've bought houses in bulk. We've paid for transport in bulk. And what's bulk? Well, it depends. Right? I mean, one time I bought 8 houses from the same guy and got them really inexpensive. Then this different guy, hey, move 8 houses from location A to location B, and you can just boom, 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 knock them all out. And sometimes, wood, or, I had a deck guy, like, look, I'll give you the next 25 decks if you give me this price per deck. And we were putting 8x8 decks in for $300 labor, which is nearly impossible to find nowadays. But it's also much more difficult to find if you're doing it as a one-off. So bulk purchase can help. One of these should be obvious for expense reduction, but be using some sort of RUBS, ratio uniform billing system, or other bill back for water and sewer. Of course, there's certain regulatory requirements for different jurisdictions on that. Some people bill back trash or have some sort of other waste management plan. So that can work depending on your jurisdiction. Some people will have their property management software company, We're at Manager or Manage America or Yardi, one of these, actually do their payables for them and print checks, stuff envelopes, and mail. And you can put kind of a decision tree in there as far as types of checks or dollar amounts of checks. There's a company called MailFuse that's doing that with virtual certified mail. So that's what I'm going to look at for my law firm. Is we do a fair amount of certified mail for the law firm, and it just we have an account with UPS and FedEx, so we can do it and print our own labels and stuff from the office. But that takes staff time, and if we're sending something for a client, we're billing whatever the actual shipping costs are, but we're often not billing our time for that because it's administrative time. So maybe I can just have MailFuse do it, and then it's still going to be, the actual shipping costs are still going to be billed back to the client. So if you're a park operator, you may not have probably don't send as much as a law firm, so it's probably even less effective for you. So outsourcing it might make sense. Other things that some people are putting rooftop antennas on. I've heard of people even doing solar panels. Sometimes you can put up a billboard, for money. That's generally a zoning challenge to like have a real billboard that you see on the highway. And obviously it's location specific. If you don't have a high traffic count, nobody's going to advertise on your billboard. We have internal, like they're little shadow boxes, like glass boxes that with a billboard with like park map, park rules, maybe a recent newsletter. Other things, again, zoning could be a challenge, but you can do RV storage or trailer storage, or just outdoor storage on an empty grass or gravel area. Sometimes you actually have like legit storage facilities, or fenced in storage, things of that sort. Additional revenue, income generation. One guy at the community was putting in electric vehicle charging stations. This to me seemed like a little foolhardy, but there's not that many people in my communities that have electric vehicles. I'm unaware of any residents that have electric vehicles, generally because they're pretty expensive to buy. But somebody's putting them in as a revenue generator. I'm a big fan of putting in sheds, because generally that's okay from a zoning perspective. Put in a shed and rent it for 25 or 35 bucks a month, and then you can actually, when you do a refinance with Fannie Mae, you can count that as land income. So basically you can get, $4,000 of value per shed, and get a shed installed for about $1,000. Just a little 7x7 shed you buy from Home Depot. Another tip that somebody was talking about doing was using Cred Hub to report credit to your residents' rental payments, because this is now a way to help them build their credit. Because a lot of people have no credit, not just bad credit or good credit, but just don't have any credit because they've never had debt. So it's hard to build credit, and that makes it hard for some mobile home financiers. If their credit score is just 0 or NA, then they can't get a loan. So some people are reporting their rental payments as if they were mortgage or credit card payments, and then it builds up their credit score. I thought that was interesting. Another company that's been to the last couple of conferences, I've not talked to me, has actually used them, but I'm sure lots do, because they've made a pretty big presence the last couple of conferences. That is CoverTree. Part of CoverTree's goal is to help get the homes in your community insured, and you wouldn't be the direct beneficiary of the insurance proceeds, but it's in my interest for my residents to have insurance. We have a community in Iowa that the tornado did not hit the park, but tornado was very close by, and the ancillary winds hit the park, because our park is on the immediate south end of the town. It's like the first property that's not a cornfield. So we had, of the park owned homes that I own, I had 3 that were completely totaled, blew away, or trees fell on them and crushed them. And then there's like 45 houses in the community, like 40 of them had significant damage. Well, some of those residents did not have insurance, so that's a problem. Roof blew off, things like that. Luckily, nobody was hurt. One person I think got hit with a little bit of glass, but nobody was taken to the hospital or killed, so that was very fortunate. We had insurance on our homes, so that worked out just fair, not normal, fine, in a couple instances even pretty favorably, on the insurance proceeds relative to what I would have probably thought they would have been. But CoverTree can help people with renter's insurance or even casualty insurance, I believe, to make sure your residents have that. Now, there's obviously a cost. There's a lot of service providers out there, and I'm not going to mention all of them on this session here, but some of them, for example, they'll let your, this one I will mention because I don't really agree with it. They'll pay your residents rent for the resident. And it's like payday lending, but systematized with the landlord. So it's like, oh, hey, look, if it rents $400 a month, tell you what, we'll front the 400 on the first, and you can just pay us back on the 15th and the 30th at your paycheck. Oh, and we only charge $50. They're like, oh, it's only a $50 charge. It's like, yeah, well, what the heck? Do the math. 50 into 40 into 400, that's a pretty high percentage. Oh, but wait, that's not even annualized. Take that times 12 or take that times 24. And basically it's really high interest and high penalties. But there's services like that and lots of add-on services that, quote, are available and they're quote helpful, but you gotta know what's the true impact, because some of these services, they're just taking money out of your resident's pocket. So and I tell residents, like, one thing we do with our homes is we'll put new guts in the toilet, the anti-flapping devices basically, and they're like $13 on Amazon, and then we takes half an hour or less to install them, and we don't make any money on it. And we generally don't even charge the residents. But it's like, hey, I don't want you to spend more on water than you need to utilize. I'm not making any money on water. My goal is to break even. But if your toilet, just do the math, or I'll do it real quick on the live here because I've done it for staff more than once. But I have to say, picture this little bitty, little gnome or leprechaun sitting on your toilet, and this person's mission in life is to flush a toilet, and then they flush it, and then it takes about a minute to fill back up, and they flush it again, and then they do it again, and then they do it again, and they do it all day. Well, that's what an open flap will do. So if I have 2 gallons to fill the thing times 1 minute times 60 minutes times 24 hours in a day, that's 2,880 gallons times 30 days, 86,000. Now, most of the time, the flap isn't open the whole time. It goes up and down. You can see it, and if you track it on, like, Metron has a water scope system, you can track it 24/7 and see it. But when I first submetered a community, I noticed one particular household had 69,000 gallons of water usage per month, and it was like $3,200. They had been getting free water and just wasting it for years and years and years. So putting in cost saving devices like that, again, the goal of something like that as an ancillary service, it's, hey, I'm helping you save money. Because guess what? If you give all your money to the water company, you're gonna have less money to pay rent. You're gonna have less money to fix your car to get to work, so you can make money to pay rent. You're gonna have less money to put in your own flowers and landscaping and paint your house and take care of your family. So I would like for you to have more money. So anything you can come up with that's an ancillary service that either A, adds value, like adding a dog park adds value to people, pets. Okay, you can probably get more rent. But even if you're not adding value that you can charge for, you need to add value by coming up with some sort of service or efficiency that makes your park more profitable for the community owner, and or the park makes the expenses cheaper for the residents. Because I've had people move out because the utilities are too high. Like, so not having an underbelly on a home in the Midwest, like, that's good. There's no insulation. You're gonna have more frozen pipes, one, but you're also gonna have worse insulation for heat. Some of those older metal on metal homes have really thin walls, and they've been, insulation's been in there for 30 or 40 years. Well, the insulation eventually kind of condenses and shrinks and ends up at the bottom of the wall, and then most of the wall doesn't have any real insulation left in it. So metal on metal houses are harder to keep warm in the winter. And you can, depending on where you live in the country or where your community is, you may want to evaluate a gas home versus an electric home. Typically, it's a little bit of an upcharge to the manufacturer to put in gas. Generally, you get a 100 amp home on electric and just do gas and electric versus 200 amp. Like my parks in Iowa, we can't do straight electric because Iowa's pretty cold, and the utility bills are going to choke people in the winter. Now, at a community in St. Louis area, several hours south of Iowa, you can do a home that's straight electric, and it's not that expensive in the winter. So little add-ons like that, little ancillary services, these can all help increase the value of your park, increase the value of the community in the eyes of the residents by creating a greater satisfaction. So that's just a few of the tips and tricks. I'm sure there's a lot more out there. If you've got them, feel free to shoot me an email. I'd love to know. Till next time, invest wisely. Thanks and God bless.
You've been listening to the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Niemann. Ready to learn more? Go to www.themobilehomelawyer.com for free resources and materials to help you succeed. If you love the podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, give us your review, and subscribe today. Thank you for listening. Neither the Supreme Court of Missouri nor the Missouri Bar reviews nor approves certifying organizations or specialist designations. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.